Welcome back to Super Recaps. Today we will be watching a Korean crime, horror, and a mystery movie from 2020 called The Call. Watch out for spoilers ahead. Sung-ho picks up Seo Yeon from the village where she used to reside as a child and drives her to her home. Her mother is quite unwell, so he asks the young woman if she went to see her at the hospital on the way there. She doesn't respond since she realized she had left her phone at the station and is concerned about the phone. She finds a cordless phone and plugs it in as soon as she enters the house. Seo Yeon picks up the phone and hears a woman's voice, mistaking her for someone else, saying her mother is insane. The woman hangs up when she discovers she dialed the wrong number. Later that day, Seo Yeon goes to her mother's doctor, who informs her that she has a brain tumor that can be removed, but that the treatment is complicated and that she should be referred to a specialist. She sits in her mother's hospital room for a while, and Seo Yeon's mother tells her that she needs to start making funeral arrangements. When her mother urges her to inquire if she can be buried with or close to her father, Seo Yeon becomes enraged and storms out of the room. She then pays a visit to her father's grave, where it is noted that he died in 1999. When Seo Yeon returns home, the mysterious phone call reappears. She notices that the woman on the other end of the line claims to be phoning from the same house address as Seo Yeon. Seo Yeon is awoken by a loud clatter in the house that night, and when she investigates, she discovers that it was merely a photo that had fallen from its post. She tries to rehang it but discovers that the wall it was hung from is a fake wall, concealing the existence of a completely new chamber. She enters the chamber with a flashlight after breaking down the wall and discovers a box containing various items, including a girl's journal. A photo of the girl falls from it as she flicks through it. Seo Yeon then shows Sung-ho the photo and he informs her that it is Young Suk. He also tells her that Young Suk's stepmother was something of a shaman, used to live in the house. He claims he can't recall anything further from that time after telling her the bare minimum. Seo Yeon notices that the photo is from 1999. On her walk home, she passes a store with the name of the woman her mysterious caller is looking for, Sun-hee. That night, she receives another call from the woman on the other end, who is furiously shouting until her stepmother drags her away from the phone. The mother tries to burn her, but they fight and set fire to the room that Seo Yeon had previously discovered. Seo Yeon walks over to the hole she cut in the wall, where she notices smoke and fire crackling on the stairwell. The phone rings again later, and Seo Yeon informs the woman that she recognizes she is talking to Young Suk and that she's located her photo from November 26, 1999. Because Young Suk claims that it is only the 18th, Seo Yeon reads a line from the previous day's journal. Young Suk is startled when she double-checks what she typed and finds it's the same. Seo Yeon tells her that her explanation for what's going on is that they're both living in the same house at different times, despite the fact that it may sound unbelievable. She discovers a newspaper story from November 18 and advises Young Suk to watch the news that night for a report on a plane crash to confirm her theory. Young Suk had supper with her mother that night, and the woman threatens to take her back to the institution if she doesn't eat, so she starts filling her face. She sees the plane crash report and contacts Seo Yeon again after making her mother unhappy. Seo Yeon and Young Suk become friends as Seo Yeon tells Young Suk about the future, including her favorite musicians' comeback to the music scene and new technology that, in 1999, still seems insane. Seo Yeon tells her how her father died after Young Suk informs her that her biological mother has died and the lady abusing her is her stepmother. Seo Yeon explains when she was a child, their house caught fire because her mother neglected to turn off the gas, and her father died in the blaze. Seo Yeon and her family visit Young Suk's house on November 21, 1999, with the intention of purchasing it. Seo Yeon's father is still alive at this point in time. Young Seo Yeon dashes upstairs and asks her stepmother to open the door to Young Suk's room. When Young Suk arrives at the door and sees who the visitors are, she summons older Seo Yeon and allows her to listen in on her father's conversation. Seo Yeon, who hasn't heard his voice in 20 years, is overcome with emotion. Young Suk devises a plan to save her father from the fire on her own. Young Suk escapes the house without her stepmother's knowledge on November 27, the day before Seo Yeon's father was due to die, and travels to the house where Seo Yeon resided before they moved. Seo Yeon, who is younger, is watching TV and her mother is painting her nails as lunch is being prepared on the stove. Later, as Seo Yeon is playing with her father, the mother leaves the house and Young Suk steals the key. As the fire begins to burn, Young Suk enters the house. Seo Yeon's phone is returned to her in the present, and the burn mark on her leg vanishes. Suddenly, her entire house, as well as herself and her room, begin to transform. Seo Yeon walks downstairs and out of the house and she discovers a magnificent glasshouse garden. As she walks in, she first sees her mother, then her father. When Seo Yeon sees him in front of her, she starts crying and then hugs him, which confuses both of her parents. She later telephones Young Suk to express her gratitude. Seo Yeon spends time with both of her parents before calling Young Suk to share some new music. Over time, the two of them continue to communicate and grow closer. Until one day, Seo Yeon is unable to speak on the phone since she is with her parents. Young Suk continues to call her and becomes enraged when she does not return her calls. When they eventually speak again, it's clear that Young Suk isn't feeling well. Over the phone, Seo Yeon hears screaming and then Young Suk's stepmom's voice warns her to stay away from her or she will be hurt. Young Suk's stepmother used to execute an exorcism on her, certain that she could cure her that way, despite the young woman pleading with her to stop. Young Suk apologizes to the stepmom while her stepmother flogs her and chants over her crying face. After that, Young Suk's stepmother visits Sun Hee's store and observes that Young Suk has been there as well. The woman in the store has a wound on her leg, which the stepmother notices. Seo Yeon can't stop herself from looking for Young Suk on the internet right now. When she can't find her on social media, she looks up her address and reads about Young Suk's death during an exorcism performed on her by her stepmother. Seo Yeon contacts Young Suk and tells her that she believes she will die that night. Her stepmother retrieves a knife from the aquarium and goes up to her room. She flings the knife onto the bed, where she believes Young Suk is asleep. Young Suk, on the other hand, is not in the bed, as the stepmother discovers in horror. Young Suk mocks her and then uses the fire extinguisher to knock her out. She discovers the knife in the hazy room and confronts her stepmother, killing her because she has developed a thirst for blood. After that, she contacts Seo Yeon, who stands by the phone, frightened, until Young Suk assures her that she is alright. She also claims to be feeling reborn. Young Suk can be seen leaving the house in the next frame, relieved that she has been set free. She starts by treating herself to a lunch she enjoys, and then she goes shopping for new clothes. In the present time, Seo Yeon greets Sung-ho as he enters the family house to deliver their strawberries. Everyone is enthralled by the fruit and expresses gratitude to Sung-ho for bringing it to the family. In the past, he has made a separate delivery to the residence, but this time Young Suk is the one who opens the door. She's overjoyed with her new outfits and proudly displays them to Sung-ho before inviting him. Sung-ho inquires about her mother, but she simply wants to know which of her new dresses he prefers, and she leaves him alone in the den as she goes off to find other items she's purchased. Meanwhile, Sung-ho goes into the kitchen to place the strawberries into the refrigerator, but when the refrigerator he notices a bundle of foul-smelling black plastic bags. He drops one on the floor as he shifts one to make room for the fruit, and when he picks up the bag, he discovers it's full of body parts. Young Suk discovers Sung-ho in the kitchen, dressed in the other attire she wanted to show him. She is enraged because he unzipped the bag and went into another room to get the fire extinguisher while the man sat in the kitchen doing nothing. Meanwhile, in the present, Seo family Yeon's is having tea with him and his tiny puppy, having a pleasant discussion, and eating some strawberries. Seo Yeon picks up the phone from her room when it rings. Over the phone, she hears Sung-ho's sobbing from the past and Young Suk curses him for ruining her new clothes. The phone call abruptly ends. Seo Yeon has a horrible feeling about the talk she just had, and when she returns downstairs, she notices Sung-ho has vanished. He wasn't even there, and her parents had never heard of him before. She checks the refrigerator just in case, then walks over to his strawberry patch, which is deserted. Seo Yeon goes to the rural police station and asks the officers if they recognize him. Despite the fact that the younger cop has never heard of him or his strawberry field, the elder officer has. He asks Seo Yeon why she is asking for someone who has been dead for 20 years, and she is taken aback by the question. The officer leads her to the back and presents her his police report, which states that he was murdered in her home by Young Suk. While in the past, the police just visited Young Suk, inquiring about Sung-ho, before realizing she was the one who murdered him. She tries to convince them that she doesn't know him, but one of the cops, the elder one who Seo Yeon spoke with in the future, recognizes the inconsistencies in her responses. Young Suk claims she hasn't seen him and that her mother isn't around to inform them if she has, but the officer finds a strawberry delivery in the house. She lies to conceal her tracks once more, but the cop detects her deception and takes a few notes, making her anxious. Young Suk blabs about a murder in the area. Even though the police officer is suspicious, he decides to leave her house. Older Seo Yeon ultimately approaches Sun Hee, the shop owner, to inquire about what transpired between Young Suk and her stepmother. Young Suk, Sun Hee claims, was a well-behaved girl who would sit and listen to her talk about her husband for hours. She used to sneak snacks into her room every now and then until she wounded herself badly one day. Sun Hee would have died if it hadn't been for Young Suk's stepmother. Later, while she thaws the body part from her fridge, Young Suk phones Seo Yeon. Seo Yeon answers the phone and wonders if she killed Sung-ho, but Young Suk lies to her and tells her she didn't. Therefore Seo Yeon reads her a newspaper headline about the day Young Suk was captured by the police as a serial killer and condemned to life in prison. Young Suk decides that a life sentence isn't worth it, so she abandons the act, revealing to Seo Yeon that she actually did murder the strawberry farmer. Young Suk then begins asking Seo Yeon about how the police discovered she was the perpetrator of the crime, telling her that she will need her to figure out how that happened so she can avoid being apprehended. She will not forget what she did for Seo Yeon, and she becomes enraged when Seo Yeon keeps hanging up on her. Both women have quite different reactions to the situation. One is afraid and crying, unable to do anything, while the other is enraged and vindictive, repeatedly dialing Seo Yeon's number. In 1999, the cop continues to investigate Young Suk since she has mental health difficulties. Young Suk is trying to contact Seo Yeon in the future when she hears a knock on the door and opens it to see Seo Yeon's younger self and her father there. Young Suk is informed that they are looking for her stepmother, who was meant to meet them at the realtor's office some time ago. Young Suk claims she may have slept off and invites them to come inside and wait for her. Seo Yeon is also with her father in the future. He realizes that she is concerned and inquiries about it, but she responds that she is unconcerned. Her father pulls over to the side of the road and tells her to drive so he can cheer her up. He informs her that she needs to be gentler with the brake pedal so that she doesn't spill the coffee when the car comes to a stop. By following his instructions, Seo Yeon is able to accomplish this. Young Suk is preparing to harm him in the past as he waits in the den with young Seo Yeon. As the small girl eats one of the strawberries, she notices Young Suk approach and spray her father with the fire extinguisher. In the present, Seo Yeon is driving through a tunnel when she notices her father slowly vanishing right in front of her eyes, and that version of the future crumbles with the car's broken glass. Cut to a scared young Seo Yeon stepping back from her father's blood and the image of Young Suk murdering him. Her elder self awakens in the tunnel, without her father. Young Suk approaches the younger version of Seo Yeon and tells her that she is to blame for her father's death because she did not pick up the phone. Seo Yeon returns to the house in the present day, finding it in a terrible state and the words, "Seo Yeon, answer the phone," written in blood on the floor. The phone rings, and she knows she should pick it up without hesitation. Young Suk teases her about how she killed her father, enraging Seo Yeon to the point of threatening to kill her. However, while Seo Yeon is unable to reach Young Suk has the younger version of Seo Yeon strapped to a chair, giving her the upper hand in the scenario. Young Suk tells her she has 1 hour to figure out how the cops will apprehend her or she will harm her mother as well. Seo Yeon has a plan to get herself out of this dilemma and eliminate Young Suk once and for all. Her objective is to send Young Suk to a location where she has researched that an accident would occur, and then kill her in this manner. Seo Yeon directs her to a place where a gas explosion is expected to occur, assuring Young Suk that she will meet the man who finds the knife with her bloody fingerprints there. She watches it unfold on her phone, but Young Suk saves herself once more by fleeing the building before it collapses. She's understandably enraged with Seo Yeon when she phones her back. Young Suk demonstrates her displeasure with her by leaving her on the phone while she burns her younger Seo Yeon with boiling water, creating scars on the adult Seo Yeon's body. To make matters worse, she plays Seo Yeon a voicemail that her mother left for her father, threatening to come after them. And Young Suk doesn't stop there, reminding her that Seo Yeon was the one who caused her father's death in the first place, pushing the symbolic knife even farther. It appears that her mother switched off the gas before leaving the house that day, and Seo Yeon was the one who turned it back on, mistakenly believing she was doing the right thing. In the present, Seo Yeon has no other option except to break into the police station and obtain the information she seeks, so she does so. She reads the police officer's notes and discovers how she was eventually apprehended, directing Young Suk to the correct location this time. When Young Suk discovers the knife with her prints that she believed she had thrown away, he kills him with it as well. The material in the notebook fades, but new information about her mother looking for Seo Yeon at the local police station arrives. Seo Yeon notices a timeline of events happening in the past in the officer's notebook. In the past, the officer chooses to assist her mother when he discovers the place where her husband and daughter were supposed to go. All of the knowledge about Young Suk suddenly vanishes, and the house begins to transform once more. Seo Yeon flees the house, but she continues to read that her mother and the cop visited Young Suk in search of her and her father. Young Suk claims they left earlier, but Seo Yeon's mother discovers her hair bow. She and the officer requested that the second level of the house be searched, but there was nothing there. Meanwhile, Seo Yeon discovers that Young Suk has had an especially prolific career as a serial killer when she returns to the house in the future. She returns to the room she discovered at the beginning of the film and discovers the phone there. In the past, Seo Yeon's mother has an idea to contact her husband's phone to see whether he is available. The mother phones her daughter in the future, instead of her husband. Her daughter from the future shouts at her mother to get out of the house, using Young Suk's phone. Young Suk smacks Seo Yeon in the head at the same time, breaking the line. In the past, Young Suk has already killed an officer in front of Seo Yeon's mother and demanded the phone. A simultaneous chase is happening in both the past and the present, with Young Suk running after Seo Yeon and her mother in both timelines. They both flee into the same room, as the homicidal maniac slams the door. The phone suddenly rings, and it's Seo Yeon's mother dialing 911, but Seo Yeon from the future picks up and advises her to relax and fetch a weapon. The woman locates a fire extinguisher and removes the safety pin before waiting for Young-suk to open the door. Unfortunately, Young-suk from the past has a brilliant idea of luring the mother out of the room by placing her child in front of it and calling for her. Young-suk assaults the mother with a knife as her elder self draws closer to entering the room with Seo Yeon. Young-suk grabs the knife and wrestles with Seo Yeon's mother for it before she can stab her mother in the past. As Young-suk finally enters the room, Seo Yeon from the future notices the blood on the walls from the struggle. However, in the past, Seo Yeon's mother tackled Young-suk before she could strike the kid, and the two of them fell over the railing. The older version of Young-suk's self disappears from the future, leaving Seo Yeon alone in the lonesome house. Later, Seo Yeon from the future rushes to the cemetery, believing that her mother has also died. The mother, on the other hand, suddenly appears, smiling and asking why she's crying. Seo Yeon is relieved that her mother is still alive and learns that she is actually quite good. Subscribe and turn on the notifications to watch more movies like this. Thanks for watching.